On this episode of the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast, the funk fuck debate rages on. We're not debating funk or fuck as used in the song Erotic City, like trying to determine which lyrics were used depending on if it was Prince or Sheila E., but instead we're talking about this versatile song that was either from the Purple Rain era, if you like that version, or the one that was redone and released as part of the Purple Rain sequel, Graffiti Bridge. The song I'm talking about is We Can Fuck or We Can Funk, depending on which version you're listening to. and joining me on this episode, this fucktastic episode, is Julian Long. Welcome back.
Yay. I like it. That's a lot to live up to. I'm going to have to put on my extra sexy voice for the ladies.
Yeah, please do. Please. Oh, I don't, actually, you know what? Your normal voice is pretty damn sexy as it is. So
that is very kind of you. Thank you. I think the same of you. Now, you know who would be a problem on this? You have Angel Monique guests sometimes.
Yep,
this is not I wouldn't be able to listen to this episode if she was doing the commentary. Would not.
Yeah. Just, you know, we're a little too personally.
a little too personally to listen to all this sort of honey glazed. You know, she's got that southern thing going on. Be a bit much for this. Uh-huh. So I think most of your listeners will be relieved that it's we'll make it just sexy enough.
Just sexy enough. Yeah. I mean, I do have a probably a versatile listening group that comes in on. I have some children that listen to my show. I know this for a fact, so I have to.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, not little children, mind you.
Okay.
Teenagers, but
maybe they shouldn't listen to the '84 version of this song. They should only listen to the '90s version, if even that. If we're being honest.
Yeah, it's a lot of innuendo there. That's pretty thinly veiled. Okay, so the original version of this song, which was then, of course, known as We Can Fuck, was recorded on New Year's Eve and December 31st, 1983, and then again, more work was done on the song on New Year's Day and the following day, January 1st and 2nd, 1984. This was in Sunset Sound in Hollywood. And so, you know, that's the version that we're going to start talking about. That's the version on the Purple Rain Deluxe release from 2017. It's the only version of the song that is considered explicit because of the use of the word fuck instead of funk in the song and the title. And then in June of '86, Prince re-recorded the song, toning down the lyrics quite a bit, changing fuck to funk. And you know, it's a slower version. It's funkier. It's got the revolution. And this was around that Dream Factory Crystal Ball era. Why the song wasn't included as part of the Sign of the Times Super Deluxe, I'm not sure. I don't know if they were saving it for a Graffiti Bridge project and say, hey, here's the version of We Can Funk from '86. I don't know, because it falls in line with those songs from that 85, 86 time frame, but we didn't get it on Sign of the Times.
Right.
And then it was updated again in 1989 at Paisley Park Studios without George Clinton. And then George Clinton added his vocals sometime in late 89, early 90. And that's the final version, the final released version of We Can Funk that we got for Graffiti Bridge. So this song has a bit of a history behind it. The origin story is where we're going to start with We Can Fuck. But there's also, I wasn't really familiar with this version, but there's a version by Andy Allo from 2011 titled We Can Love, and it's preciously spelled O-U-I.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for we. We can, O-U-I can L-U-V, so We Can Love. It's acoustic, it's really quite pretty. It's a nice song. She takes about 2 verses that were from the original version and then adds like 2 more of her own. I assume her own. I don't know exactly if she wrote it or Prince wrote her lyrics for this version, but they're more original lyrics on the second half of that song. So it's kind of like a half cover, half reimagining of the song, but we're not touching that one.
Yeah, no, you said it was pretty. I don't think
Yeah, I mean
song was ever meant to be pretty.
No, that's something about this song, Julian, is how it evolved. It has evolved every time Prince changes the word from fuck to funk to love. It's going to evolve musically,
right,
and tonally as a result of that. And yeah, the version from 83, 84 is not pretty whatsoever. So
yeah. I mean, it's not, but I will say the last 2-3 minutes of it, it gets very pretty. It gets very love sexy pretty. And I have a lot of thoughts about his sort of what I'm going to call ramblings at the end of that. In the 84 version, because then the music does take this weird sort of, spacey light Lisa Frank rainbows and clouds kind of sound, and then he brings back the doom 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 doom, and it switches it a little bit. I almost forgot what song it was.
Yeah, we can fuck is a very avant-garde almost song in terms of how it changes its the musical pieces that are used in it. It's almost like two different songs in some parts. It's very challenging due to its length. It's challenging because of how Prince, towards the end of the song, as you mentioned, will do like a breakdown. He does a spoken word section. He's speaking to somebody like he often has done and before in songs, like he's talking to somebody, but you only hear one side of the conversation. This is a kind of I wouldn't call it a trope, but it's certainly something Prince has done in songs where he's had one-sided conversations with usually women in his songs. And you're just like, you have to kind of fill in the blanks on what is being said on the other side, or if anything's being said, if he's just, like you said, rambling. And yeah, this version is very, it's very unique for that. And he tones it down a bit, not just the lyrics, but the music, and it makes it a bit less challenging musically and less interesting musically, in my opinion. But that's
okay.
People have their opinions, and that's why I call it like the funk fuck debate, because people are pretty divided. I wouldn't say people are like, oh, I hate that version versus I love this version, but they have their favorites, and it isn't clear cut. It's not everybody loves one version over the other. It's really pretty split from my experience.
Of the two big ones, which is your favorite?
Fuck is definitely my favorite.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I consider this brilliant. I consider the song brilliant, and it's my favorite song from the Purple Rain Deluxe release in 2017.
Okay. I prefer the funk version. It's one, I think, and we've talked about this before. It's one of those things, I think, where the thing that you're introduced to first is the one that you just have an affinity for. But it had sonically, while it isn't, you're right, it isn't as interesting musically, sonically, like just literally the sound of it is more appealing to me. And I like the fact that it's shorter and a little less challenging. The We Can Fuck challenges me like I'm being pricked many, many times with a pin. Whereas We Can Funk, even though he softened the lyrics, he made the music much more aggressive. And so it was like a punch in the gut. It was like, oh, I was not ready. And also I was in Graffiti Bridge. I was in 7th grade, 8th grade. So it ran into all of my hormones. And so it just it stuck as one of those songs that was like, oh, this is when that light bulb came on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, We Can Funk is the first version of this song that I heard because I had Graffiti Bridge back in the day.
Right.
And it, for whatever reason, that version never stuck out to me. It's one of my favorite songs on Graffiti Bridge now, but back in 1990, that is not a song that really kind of, like I said, stuck out and grabbed me the way that Joy and Repetition or
Joy and Repetition.
Elephants and Flowers or some of the other songs that I really enjoy off that. I don't know why. I can't explain why. But then when I heard this, the fuck version. We'll just call it the fuck version.
That old Eddie Murphy video was like, I know you, you're the fuck you man.
Yeah, I mean the F word is just going to be said a lot in this episode. It's just there's no way around it.
But when you first heard that one did stand out for you. Like it just flipped the switch.
We Can Fuck really stood out, and I get it's not as funky. I totally agree with anybody who says, well, the 86 and 90 versions are funkier. Yeah, they are. They absolutely are. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to explain why. I just think I like how difficult it is. And interesting he is.
No, it is difficult and challenging, but there is something. I'll say this: what I do like about the '84 version more, and as we get into the lyrics, we'll talk about it. There's a certain sincerity in, and maybe because he's not editing down, but there's a certain it feels real. It feels like honest to goodness seduction. Like a real invitation to the fucking that is to commence. Whereas We Can Funk feels like it's being a little bit too clever. Like it's playing too much. And lyrically in We Can Funk, that's in a couple of places off-putting. But one of the reasons that We Can Fuck for me falls down, I called it rambling. That spoken bit at the end, for me, loses some of that sincerity. It doesn't sound. It sounds more performative than some of the other times we've heard him do that. When we've heard those conversations in other songs, something about this one felt different. But I'll save it for when we get to those lyrics.
Okay. Let's get moving because we do have a lot of lyrics to cover.
Yes, we do.
We got a lot of lyrics to cover. The good news is between Fuck and Funk, there's a lot of similarities lyrically. So, like, I'm gonna skip past all the stuff that's unique to Graffiti Bridge's We Can Funk, and we'll save that. So what I'm going to start with and reciting are just the lyrics that are part of We Can Fuck, which anything that's similar, I'll point out and say, like, well, that's the same as what we got in Funk, but the differences are going to be in like the second half of the song,
right?
And of course, the difference in saying "fuck" versus "funk." So, that
little minor detail.
Yeah, just a minor detail. Okay, so the first, what I'll call verse, and the thing about this song is like, does it have a chorus? I suppose it kind of does, and I'll tell you what I think is the chorus, but I could tell you what other people think is the chorus. I don't know. So the first grouping of lines, we'll just call it that.
Okay.
I could tell you stories till you get tired. I could play with your mind. But you'd probably say that I was a liar, so I won't waste your time. And then after that is where you get what I'm kind of called the chorus, is where he says, I'm scared, because though we just met, there's this energy between us. Let's just go somewhere we can fuck. So we'll call it the first grouping of lines. So Prince is kind of describing a scenario where he's talking to a woman, telling her how he could play the usual mating games, talking, spitting game, getting to know each other, sometimes lying in order to get, where to get her in bed or just to impress her, as we tend to sometimes do when we're trying to bed somebody or get somebody interested in us, maybe to embellish a little bit of our traits or our characteristics or our personality. But he's saying, like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to waste your time by going through the motions of this quote unquote mating game in order to have sex. Let's just skip all that, because there's this energy between us that we just need to fuck. Bottom line. And the I'm scared part is kind of like him emphasizing, or saying like he's sort of a little bit intimidated by this immediate connection that he's feeling. That's kind of what I'm getting from this, Julian. What are you getting?
I think all of that's real. That's valid. The thing that's funny to me about it, though, is you're right. He is kind of suggesting, I'm not going to play any games. I'm not going to do all this. But this is some game. This is some really
it's like
heavy
next
game.
level game.
Yeah, it's a whole other thing where it's like even the I'm scared because though we just met, there's this energy between us. Like that's ripped from the '70s hairy chest medallion game. Like that's that I don't know about you, but I just feel like we need to. Like you've heard that somebody try and spit that before, but the way that he does it, and I think what makes it interesting is this suggestion that he is legitimately intimidated and that vulnerability that's in it. In this song, I buy it. I actually buy the suggestion of vulnerability that he knows that this is the thing that they got to do. We got to do this because the energy is here. But I didn't expect this. Like I actually kind of buy it. There's a softness in his delivery of these lines that makes it work. That doesn't show up, in the other version. So I'm with it. And the in this version too, the let's go somewhere is much more pronounced. I hear it better, which makes it it kind of gives it that inevitability. Like let's just go somewhere and do this. Like it's gonna happen. It's got to happen, and I dig it.
Yeah, you bring up a good point from a performance perspective. Prince performs this version a bit quieter, a bit more like it's a bit like he's telling somebody a secret, like whispering to somebody in a club, or like it's this big, I don't know, like conspiracy that he's talking about and he doesn't want a lot of people to hear. Where the versions of Weekend Funk, it's just more upfront. The lyrics are more upfront. He's not whispering them. He's not kind of hiding behind the music a little bit as he is in Weekend Funk. And so it's a subtle difference in like I said, the performance of it doesn't really change the lyrics per se, but it definitely changes maybe your interpretation of the tone or like you're imagining what is it that he's doing in this moment, which could change your opinion of the song in some ways.
That's a big difference. And I keep thinking of this song as a part of Purple Rain. And I'm trying to figure like where in the movie would this be? Where does this sit? What part of the story is this? Because he's already done like the tone of Weekend Funk. Well, one, we already see it in the movie, so we know how it shows up. But the sort of almost confront, the aggressiveness of it is confrontational almost. And we see that movie in Purple Rain. We see that moment when he's, standing on stage and is like, do you want him or do you want me? Because I want you. And the pointing. So it's not that. It's not that part of that relationship. And I keep wondering, like, if this is to Apollonia, when would he be doing it? What would he be saying and doing?
That's the point in the movie where they decide that they need to go somewhere and fuck. Is after he performs The Beautiful Ones to her, and then she finds him in the alley afterwards, and it's like, it's on. So, yeah, that's the moment. So I don't know what else. The only other moment that could possibly I can even imagine would be like when she sees him on stage performing Let's Go Crazy at the very, very beginning, and then he's, kind of doing his little stare down behind her.
Right.
But that doesn't, that doesn't really seem to fit either. So I don't know. Good question.
Maybe on the bike.
Maybe on the bike, yeah. Who knows? And on the way back from not Lake Minnetonka.
Exactly.
Okay. So then whether or not you call that a verse and a chorus or just a verse, I don't know, but that's the first grouping of lyrics. Then he moves on and says, I could say I'm sorry all my life, but that wouldn't be true. I only say and do the things that I do 'cause I'm not you. I'm scared, 'cause though we just met, I want you so bad, baby. Ooh, don't you want to come with me? We can fuck. Second verse, Julian. Anything new or different or interesting you want to point out here?
Not really. So to be perfectly honest, the storytelling of it is interesting, but for me musically, it's not as interesting. The I'm scared part repeating so soon after is honestly the only part of this verse that spoke to me then or speaks to me now. I say then like it was so long ago. I first heard this in 2017, like most people, but but you know what I mean.
True. Yeah. I mean, that's, that's 6 years ago now, man.
Jesus Christ, superstar. Yeah, it is.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm with you. This verse doesn't quite grab me the same way, the first one does, when he's talking about how he could play all these games and, he's not going to waste your time. But here's he's just like, I could tell you I'm sorry all my life. I guess maybe he doesn't want to apologize for feeling the way he does, for wanting what he wants, maybe. And in the fact that he's willing to stick his neck out and say what he feels, maybe she wouldn't dare. I only say and do the things that I do because I'm not you. Basically, I get from that just, I do these things and I'm saying these things because I feel like I can. I'm emboldened to do so, and maybe you would be less. And so even if you're feeling it, you might not be able to say it. I'm going to say it. I'm going to put myself out there and say, I want you so bad. Come with me. We can fuck. And I'm scared again, just like you said, it's repeating that is kind of like the touchstone of the song so far. Like if you're just kind of casually listening, you're hearing two things. You're hearing him say, I'm scared, because it's emphasized. Like he slows that down. Well, again, a lot of these lyrics in We Can Fuck are a bit obscured and hard to understand. But everybody understands the I'm scared part and we can fuck. Even though sometimes we can fuck is not quite as clear as it could be.
Right. And it is definitely the earwig of the song, right? Like the earworm of the song is that I'm scared. The we can fuck part, when it disappears, I think is one of the things that makes the seduction of this song really brilliant, is that when it disappears underneath the music or in the way that he performs it, it almost makes you wonder, like, did he say that or did I just think that? Like, is he, it really kind of puts him in your head, which is what he's doing from the beginning of the song. When he's like, I could play with your mind, I really do kind of feel like, sonically, the way he dips and hides underneath the music, this sort of half whisper, this almost shy performance of it. It's that trick of talking quietly to make her lean in. So now you've kind of set the stage to draw her into you. Now she's literally sitting on the edge of her seat, because everything that you're saying is either hard to hear or it just feels like it's so important, and it adds an importance to it that, from the standpoint of the artist's seduction, absolutely, it's an incredible mindfuck.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if
they're so shy and scared,
Yeah, so shy and scared, but also okay saying, let's go somewhere so we can fuck, and being so blunt, like so forthcoming with their desire and their intention, when normally, like, you have to play games a little bit longer than that. You can't just blurt that out within minutes of meeting somebody and expect anything other than maybe a slap to the face or, a drink thrown in your face. Well, I guess maybe if you're Prince, but
right.
Prince circa 1983, 84. But anyway, I'm thinking, like, because the song, or because a lot of the times when he says that phrase is so difficult to hear because of how he whispers it. Yeah. If you would have called this song I'm Scared, like, he calls Erotic City, not
right.
You Can Fuck or We Can Funk, which you could have called that there. We Can Funk Until the Dawn or whatever. He could have called the song I'm Scared, and then you've got people wondering, like, did he just say that? But because the song is called We Can Fuck, and I guess, and this is an unreleased song, so yes, I know this was never released until his passing, so it doesn't really matter, and it's all, just hypotheticals. But if the song would have been released, it would have found its way as a B-side or on the Purple Rain soundtrack, if it was like this epic double album. Could this have been, or should this have been titled something else? and then leave it to listeners' imagination to decipher and what he's actually saying here. Just a thought. Yeah, it gets pretty obvious later on, but early on in the song, I think it's less clear until you get further into the track, and then you're like, yeah, that's totally what he says. Okay, so we'll move on then. So he has a bridge. I'm going to call it a bridge, and he says, "No, this isn't something I've said many times before, but what difference would it make? That was them. This is you. Why can't you see this room is electric? Okay, well then maybe it's me. But I know the smell of desire, and honey, it's all over you." So here...
Very different posture. Here.
Very different posture. Yes. So he's, denying that maybe, like, I don't know if you have to imagine maybe she is kind of calling his bluff a little bit, wondering if this, like you said, this whole, it's not a game, I'm not playing games, is actually just a game. Like, like you said, next level game spitting. And she's calling him out a little bit. You have to imagine, because he has to kind of he's on the defensive. No, this isn't something I've said many times before. I don't just tell people that, there's this electricity between us and we have to see it through. But he also says, but if it was, who cares? That doesn't matter, because that would have been them. I'm not with them anymore. I'm talking to you. So what's the difference? What difference does it make? So what are you, besides just like how different of an approach he's taking with these lyrics, what else do you see here want to talk about?
So it's a character revelation thing, right? Like, this is because both of these songs are related to their respective films. We saw this with the Purple Rain Deluxe, so I assumed that this was something that he originally crafted for that soundtrack and wanted to be a part of the story narrative. And then we actually finally see it in Graffiti Bridge, which is the sequel, air quotes sequel, to Purple Rain. I think about the character of the kid and who is showing up here at this part. And this is that smug motherfucker. This is that one that's just like, I already know how this is going to end. And the funny thing is, he's not really, it's the same message, but the posture and how he's delivering is so different that it shows a different side of whoever this character is that he's being. And I because of, again, the association with the film, I just see this as kid. But the lines that I love that last line, but I know the smell of desire, honey, and it's all over you. It's just so, it's one of those goddamn kind of like, it's shameless in how in its wording. It's definitely gonna knock somebody a little bit off their posture, off their position. That's gonna knock a woman out of her square. If he starts this first defensive, he ends on the offensive. He starts off like, no, I never said this before, but then he very quickly pivots like, but then what difference does it make? And he tells on himself, that was them. So it's like, it's not, if you never did this before, then what you mean that was them? You gave him the benefit of the doubt with the conditional. You said that would have been, but he told on himself, that was them.
He did tell on himself, didn't he?
This is you. He also does bring in this interesting theme that I like that kind of dips in and out of the rest of the song with electricity. This room is electric. Later on, this electric ass and electric thighs. And this is the kind of shit that only he can get away with. Like, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it the next time I'm feeling really bold and be like, girl, you got an electric ass. But I don't think it's going to work, because I really think only he can say stuff like that. But I am kind of interested in why he introduces electricity, and the words that he attaches it to is kind of weird. I love that he gets rebuffed on that.
You can't forget electric intercourse. So, like, yeah, totally. It's just he's got this on his brain.
Clearly, yeah. And it's like, he's got this, he's clearly rebuffed after that, because he's like, can't you see this room is electric? She does not agree. He's like, oh, well, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the electricity. Is what I take it as. He could be saying, maybe I'm the only one who sees the room as electric, but I think he's saying, no, I'm bringing the electricity. But whatever it was, whatever that slight little rebuff is, he pivots so hard into this offensive that, you know, if there's a woman in this, if this were actually played out in a visual, you know what she would demur. You know this would be like a look down, touch the décolletage kind of moment. If he's not getting slapped in the face, this is the definitive moment. Either you getting slapped in the face, or y'all are eventually headed to one of them rooms. Because once he drops that line, it's so aggressive. But his delivery of it, again, like I said before, his performance here is so different that he manages to make it sound less aggressive than it actually is, but it really is.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And the aggressiveness that he exhibits in this bridge continues on with the next verse. And so, like, the first two verses, he's talking about how scared he is and how he doesn't want to play the games, and you know, he's being blunt because he doesn't think that she can admit it. But now again, he's got these lines that he's using on her that he's trying to like seal the deal, I guess, is to use a common phrase, and he's hoping that it's going to work. And now I'm getting a little bit of shades of you know, Morris Day's character in Purple Rain with some of these next lines. I could tell you things to get you excited, things you never heard. Oh, you know the Kama Sutra? I could rewrite it with half as many words. So I'm just going to pause there. So that just brings to mind like when Morris is sitting at the table in Purple Rain talking to Apollonia about his mansion and his brass waterbed and his, you know, his chef and all this shit that obviously is not real. This is kind of like a little bit of that, where, you know, hey, remember, you know, the Kama Sutra, right? That Indian book about lovemaking, erotic fiction or whatever, erotic literature. I could do that, but, you know, half as many words. So like, I'm efficient, I'm the bomb, I'm basically I can do what you need me to do, but we don't need to waste all this time, right? Like I think he's just trying to say, we don't need to waste as much time. Let's not waste time. Wasting time is not what this song is about. He wants to get down to it and wants her to make a choice.
There's an expression that I use a lot. A lot of folk around my age, my culture, use a lot of, which is, I can show you better than I can tell you. Which is effectively, depending on the context that you hear it in, is effectively a threat. It's, you really don't want the answer to this, because it normally the other side of that is an ass whooping. If somebody's like, I can show you better than I can tell you, that's the threat of an ass whooping. This has, I could show you better than I can tell you energy. Saying, you know, the Kama Sutra, I could rewrite it with half as many words, is, I could show you better than I can tell you, but it's not ass whooping, it's ass clapping.
Yep.
It's very definitively him saying, like you said, like, I know everything that needs to happen. I love the mirroring of verse 3 versus verse 1, right? So at first it's, I could tell you stories till you're tired. Then it's, I could tell you things to get you excited, things you've never heard. So when you look at that first verse, you know, tired is like tired lines, spitting tired lines. Here he's saying, you know, I can say some shit to you like you've never heard. But he still doesn't actually do it. He's still talking in that conditional. I could rewrite the Kama Sutra. I could tell you things like that. And then he comes back to this, I'm scared, which at this point, given all of everything else that he said, no, I don't believe you. I don't believe that you're scared. I believe that you recognize that this works. But yeah, when he starts this first half of, I guess we're calling this verse chorus, this third verse is a beautiful mirroring to the first verse. And we, at some point, we went through the looking glass. Somewhere around that spoken interlude, we went through the looking glass, and that character changed. And now we're getting somebody who is really fucking confident about what they're going to do and wants you to know that confidence, which makes the chorus part, the I'm scared part, a little bit weird, because you just got through talking about all this, talking all this woo woo about what you're capable of. The fuck you got to be scared for? So, but we haven't crossed those lyrics yet. So
Yeah, well, I'll just say them now because then after he says about the Kama Sutra, which I'll just point out just as a interesting little Easter egg, that was the name of the one and only album released by the NPG Orchestra in like 1997-ish, around the Crystal Ball era, was Kama Sutra.
wow.
So he still had Kama Sutra on the brain about 14 years later, give or take. But then he says, I'm scared. If I don't kiss you, I'm gonna go mad, baby. Take off my clothes. We can fuck. So again, I think the I'm scared part, while that is repeated as it does in all of the other verses, this time, I don't. It's not that I'm scared because I'm afraid of this energy that I'm experiencing with you, and I'm afraid that if I don't act on it, that I'm gonna go crazy here. It's just like I'm scared because I'm so horny. I want to kiss you, and you need to take off. It's just to me, it's not like I'm scared. It's just he's just saying at this point because he is either wanting to Prince, the writer of the song, wants to continue with the theme of being scared and using that as a kind of like a chorus or just a touch point common thread for each of these different verses. But as the character, like if you're on the receiving end of that, again, you're just getting his confidence back to you. I'm scared, but not because I'm actually scared to kiss you. It's because I'm going to go crazy if I don't kiss you.
Right.
And his next line is like, take off my clothes.
This is definitely more warning than confession. The first one had that sort of vulnerability behind it. But this is what's also interesting here is, pointing out what comes next after his first I'm scared. And then he rationalizes it. First time it's because there's this energy between us, and he makes a suggestion. Let's go somewhere. After the second I'm scared, his rationalization is I really, really want you. So we've moved from this sort of I don't understand what's happening here to I'm very clear on what's happening here. I'm just maybe intimidated by the intensity. And then after that, it's a question. It's another suggestion, but it's more in the form of a question. Don't you want to? And then this third one, after he rationalizes it, and it's not really a rationalization at this point. It's a take heed. It's almost like the transformation is happening, and I don't know. I'm not gonna be able to control myself. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's the first direct order. I'm no longer asking you. I'm no longer. It's not that he's not. I don't want to say that it's coercive. I don't feel like it's there. But this time it's already a foregone conclusion. Everything else was, you want to, or maybe we should just do this. This time is take off my clothes, which has such a force behind it. And the interesting thing is, it's take off my clothes, not take off your clothes. Mm-hmm. What makes that interesting to me is this is still, as is often the case with, I think, Prince, the artist, right? The author of this song, Prince. And in a number of the characters that show up in his songs, he wants to be chosen. It's always still like, no matter how much he pushes, no matter how much he seduces, no matter how much he works the situation, he still wants the person that he is giving attention and energy to choose him directly. Take off my clothes is different than take off your clothes, which would feel, I think that would cross a line, that would feel coercive. But here, he's still making this person like, you have to choose me. You come do this thing and you show me that this is what you want to. It's and I'm trying to think, because I know even in one of the other songs that we talked about, this Prince needing to be chosen came up, and I can't remember what it was. But I find this shift really, really interesting. Like the more we kind of unpack this, I really do see it as Prince through the looking glass. Like, There's a version of who he's pretending to be or who he might want to believe he is. And then there's who he knows he is. And as we move through verses 1 through 3, we come out on the other side with this very confident, I know exactly who I am, and I need you to know it too.
Yeah, and it's really smart of him to, whether it was intentional or just because that is who he was as a person and a songwriter, to make it so much like, you have to choose me. And whether that's because of insecurities and he really wanted it to be about him and not constantly like to be the pursuer, but also to be pursued. So he's clearly the pursuer in this song, but at the end, when it's time to finally fuck, which is what he's been, getting towards and moving towards this whole time, the final act, the final decision of whether or not that happens, he's putting it on her by asking her to take off his clothes. And if she doesn't do so, then guess what? They're not fucking. And it's very clear that she's made her choice. So,
right.
Yeah, it's smart. It's good. It's good writing. Anything else you want to talk about there?
I was just thinking, like, you're right. You're right. When you said it's good writing, it reminds me that, at the end of all of this, underneath all the musicianship, he is also very much a writer. And it's crazy to see character development over the course of a song. He's done here in 3 verses what some people don't manage in entire screenplays. It's really impressive.
Yeah, and that's basically the first half of the song. The music changes now.
Right.
I mean, he has a little bit. I'm not going to go through like all the little ad libs about let's turn on some lights and come here and we can fuck. But then he gets to this. Music starts to change a little bit. It hasn't completely changed yet. It changes a little bit even more later. But he has this whole breakdown section where he's still singing. This isn't spoken word. But he says lines like, "You can blow the candle off, baby. You can turn the candle on. Whichever one you choose is all right, because I'm going to do it all night long. Do you want to undress me, baby, or shall I undress you? You can leave your clothes on if you want to, and I'd still do what I want to do to you. Sex between 2 people is all right, whether they're in love or not. Ooh, as long as they're not trying to hurt nobody, just as long as it's hot. Good Lord, baby, I want to make love to you, 2 times, maybe 3. And I'm skipping like all the whoops and the screams that he does here. And if you want to go 2, go 4 or 5, baby, that's all right with me. Let me tell you now, I say I want to be a little baby. I can be a big, strong man. I can be a girl, a boy. I can be your toy. All you have to do is ask. It's up to you. You can fuck me, baby. I'll fuck you, yeah. We can fuck one another, whatever you want to do. You've got an electric ass, baby. You got electric thighs, baby. I can't wait no longer, child. It's getting stronger. Open up your eyes. See this gold chain around my waist? I want to give it to you. When people tell me I got no taste, they'll blow the candle out. We'll see if it's true." Okay, so he starts and ends this whole long section talking about candles. I just want to ask you, Julian, there's clearly, I think, a euphemism going on here. What do you think the euphemism is here?
I mean, I feel like we're pretty obviously dealing with candle penis here. But, and if that's the case, if his penis here is a candle, I find it really fascinating that she's electricity. She's got electric ass. He's over here with an Amish candle penis. She's over here in the modern world with her electric ass and thighs. It's like, how are they gonna make this work? How illuminated is this room going to be at the end of the day?
Oh yeah, well, if she continues to blow out his candle, not very illuminated.
Right, exactly. But
her electric ass though is going to be enough to light up the room.
That'll light the way for all of us. Exactly. It's interesting that he did that. And he clearly did it intentionally, because the very first line is, "Wait a minute, let me turn on some lights." So there's something about light here, turning off lights, and he offers to blow out the candle. You can turn it on, and then he does some work in this verse that actually negates some of what we just talked about, because while he does say whichever one you choose is all right, then when we go back to the point that we were just talking about with the take off my clothes and the undressing, he does make it clear that whether she takes off her clothes or not, he's still gonna do some things. That line, undress me, babe, shall I undress you? You can leave your clothes on if you want to, and I'll still do it all to you. I mean, on one hand, it's suggesting kind of there's a power shift in sex depending on who gets naked first, right? Like there's a certain real there's a real vulnerability that comes with nakedness. And there's whole genres of porn that are about one party being clothed and the other not, and the power dynamic that happens here. So in a way, it's like he's suggesting that if she leaves her clothes on, he'll be the naked one, the vulnerable one, and he'll be in a service position, which I think that part is interesting. And then he goes on into this sort of unnecessary justification that the shift in lyrics when we get to the other version is really interesting too, because he justifies the sex between two people is all right. Now, I don't have confirmed evidence of this, but I feel fairly certain that the man we know as Prince has definitely has sex with 2+ people at least some point in his life. But here, his Amish ways, he's sex between two people is all right. But then he hits you with the whether they're in love or not. And I find
that's interesting. Really, yes.
That's
awesome.
Yep. Especially given that he changes it in the We Can Funk version. And I have lots of questions about why that change is. But then as he builds that sort of intensity, as long as they're not trying to hurt nobody, as long as it's hot, all of this part, this we see crossover in both of the versions. But that power structure thing that we talked about comes up again with you can fuck me, baby, I'll fuck you, we can fuck one another. What to do? Like this is again kind of assigning that assigns power to it. That someone is the fucker and someone is the fuckee. Someone is getting fucked and someone is doing the fucking. Or we could do it together. The title of the song and the overtures that he makes in the beginning of the song suggest that initially his intent is always for it to be sort of a partnership. But as we've moved through, as this character becomes more urgent, as he becomes more confident, he's basically saying, however you want to play this, I'm good. I can play this from any angle. I can be your little bitty baby. I can be a big strong man. You can fuck me. I can fuck you. But some fucking going on. Like this is this is a man who has hit a point of almost there's an almost frenzied nature to the lyrics here, but it's still underlined with all of this confidence in essentially his prowess. 2 times, maybe 3, you want to go 4 or 5. I've had a fair amount of sex in my life. I've never entered the conversation with we can go 4 or 5. Listen, and I got no problem saying that.
You don't start with that.
I'm not coming into the room promising 5 rounds. No.
Yeah.
It depends. Maybe I have a couple energy drinks.
That's a foolish man's game.
Exactly. So, this is a man who clearly knows what he's about. If he's like, you want to go 4 or 5,
under promise, over deliver, right. Julian. Always under promise, over deliver.
That's how I learned it. And so that makes me terrified for what this man who's saying 4 or 5 is all right. What was he delivering? Right. Just talk about burning that candle at both ends,
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's like he's almost offering too many choices. Like you used the word frenzied, and that is, I think, a very apt term to use here because he's just all over the map here, all over the place. Be a little baby, big strong man. I could be a boy. I could be a girl. We could do it twice. We could do it 3 times. We could do it 4 times. You can fuck me. I can fuck you. I mean, it's just like a little bit off the rails in terms of like where he's what he's trying to offer this woman in this moment. He's almost like giving her too many. It's like looking at a menu you're at a restaurant and you've got like this 5-page menu and you're like, damn, this is like going to take me a while to get through all these.
Going to Cheesecake Factory where you got to go to chapter 1 and chapter 2 of the menu.
It's just almost too many choices. And I think he needs to just like narrow it down for her. But anyway, that's just my opinion. I do want to go back to the whole sex between two people is all right, whether they're in love or not, because I feel like this is a Prince who wrote this song before he had his epiphany at some point in 84, I think it was 84, where he started to devalue casual sex and value more sex between people in love. And love is greater than sex. Love is more important than sex. He emphasizes this during the Purple Rain tour, during like the God section. It's emphasized on Around the World in a Day, the album he was writing in 1984. But the man who wrote this is still kind of like that. Shit, yeah. I mean, you know, sex is great. I mean, as long as it's mutual, it don't matter if you're in love or not. I love casual sex. Let's just go roll with it, you know? And I don't think he's, like I said, I don't think he's had that epiphany yet when he wrote this song. That's kind of my take.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's trying to follow the evolution of Prince's, you know, the artist and the author's character and the changes that individual went through, and trying to match it to the music is so difficult, because he'll write something when he's in one mindset, leave it, and then pick it up and perform it when he's in a different stage of his evolution. But not all the time does the song change. Sometimes the song stays where it was when he wrote it. He just performs it, and that's why I think he performs stuff in character sometimes, to kind of give himself a way out, to leave the artistry intact, even if that's not his personal values anymore. But I don't think moving forward, I don't think he writes from those places. But it's always kind of hard to pin down. Like the version of Prince that we know from Graffiti Bridge, we know that he went through a very significant spiritual transformation by then. Like that is transparent. And yet, even with the modifications to the song, in some ways, to me, it's a lot nastier. This song seems to struggle with the desire throughout. Even after he reveals himself as this sort of confident man with this prowess, this I'm good with 5 times and I can play whatever role you need me to. There still seems to be this struggle with first the intensity of the need as you get to the end of it. You know, I can't wait no longer. Child is getting stronger. I got to give this to you. Like I know he's talking about the chain, but also, you know, the other it. All of that seems to be fraught. And I think, you know, if I'm looking at Prince as the player, I'm looking at Prince here as the aggressor, the you know, the sort of slick version of him, then I read all of this as, I'm going to get your submission by overwhelming you. I'm going to give you so many options, so many choices, so many different ways to look at this, that you're, you know, to quote Steve Urkel, I'm wearing you down, baby. Like, I think that's where he's going with that. If I look at this as someone literally out of control, and that is to say, they have skill and prowess, but they have so much of it they don't know what to do with it. That if they aren't controlling it, it's controlling them. Then this last part, this whole section before we get to the part that I glibly called ramblings, feels not just like the climax. I mean, it's obviously giving you climax energy, but it feels like almost a last desperate effort to find a way to make this work where he can maintain control of something that he feels like might be in control of him. I know I'm reading a lot into it, but both versions of these songs exist so heavily in the world of subtext. Like, there is the context of where he was in his life. There's the actual, the lyrics that we discuss here, but so much of it exists in the space of subtext of what people are feeling but can't necessarily find the way to say. And I feel like there's a lot of room for that kind of interpretation in that section. And it does, I think, make, if we regard it that way, it makes that last outro, especially given the very, very last line of the last outro, it gives it a certain character, it gives it a personality that makes sense for someone who has just gone through this very fraught moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. And before we get to that, the final outro, the spoken word section, after the frenzied and the fraught lyrics and the music building and building and building and building, the last lines of that section, I have to give props. I have to repeat it and give it props. When people tell me I got no taste, then blow the candle out. We'll see if it's true.
It's really clever. It's really
fucking clever.
Yeah.
It's fucking clever, man.
It's fantastic.
Okay. I just had to repeat it because I went through a lot of lines. I'm like, I gotta go back through this one just to emphasize it. Okay.
It's absolutely worth it. I hope everybody caught it. Like, if you didn't catch it, just go back and listen to the song again.
Yeah, and knowing what the candle likely is. So yeah, just keep that in mind. All right. So anyway, so then it kind of, at the end of that, it just kind of ends and it gets quiet again. The music gets quiet, and now he has a spoken word section where it's kind of almost like towards the end of "Do Me Baby" when he's talking to his lover after, like, in a post-coital scenario. Oh baby, this is excellent. No, it really is. It's like, I'm sorry, it's just, I don't know. I just never felt this way before. No, I'm really happy. Really. Well, I guess I met you and I just don't deserve you because you're so special. No, I'm not. Not like you. I mean, you're perfect. You really are. There are so many things I want to do with you. So many things I want to do for you. So many things for you. Listen, don't ever let anybody hurt you. No, you don't have any reason to feel insecure. You're the best. And if you believe that, never mind them. No one can ever hurt you. Yes, I love you. I know it sounds strange, but I do. I do. I knew I loved you the split second before we kissed. Oh, darling, kiss me now. Oh, baby, please fuck me again. And he repeats that. Again, I take this to be like a post-coital conversation that he's having with her. It was everything that he had hoped it would be and that he expected it would be based off of all the build-up and all of the electricity and all of the previous lines. He had a lot of confidence, went in with it a lot of confidence. Sounds like he was really pleased with not only how it went, but actually how that connection remains, and it wasn't just about the sex like, if it was just about the sex before, now I'm getting like, no, he's got some feelings now. Like, he's feeling something after this, this experience with her, and he's really vulnerable here, and the cockiness is completely gone. Like, it's wiped away, absolutely gone. There's no semblance of the cocky man that picked her up and we're using lines like, the Kama Sutra, I can write that in half as many words. Because now he's talking about how amazing she is. He's got these feelings that are, basically tripping him up a little bit, knocked him on his ass, so to speak.
Right.
And he just wants to do things for her. Like, he just imagines him almost in some ways in servitude to her, because she's so special, she's so amazing, she's perfect. And you imagine she's like, oh, well, you're great too. Like, no, not like you.
No, not like you. I only
again,
27
if you're
I'm regular.
Right. I'm just a normal guy. The cynic, of course, could still say he's still on his game, but I don't know. I don't get that at all here. I don't get that he's still on his game. I get that he's been knocked off his game, and this is him truly being vulnerable and exhibiting some self-deprecation in some ways, mostly not because he thinks that he's not all that, but just that she's just on a pedestal at this point.
Right.
Like, who the hell could, measure up to somebody who's perfection, which calls it, you're perfect. And also, like, you don't have any reason to feel insecure. Like, I don't know if she, said something or did something or acted a certain way to make him feel that she was a little bit insecure about whatever. But he's trying to reassure her that is absolutely ridiculous. You have nothing to feel insecure about. You can't let anybody hurt you because you're just better than everybody. That's kind of what I'm getting from this. And then when he says, please fuck me again, he's kind of like, it's a bit desperate. Like, I want to feel this again with you. Please fuck me again. And he's whispering it a bit, again, he's back to his little whispering prince, not the forthcoming and brash and bold prince that we had in the middle of the song. So that's kind of my take on this section. Julian, what's yours?
So I have I'm of two minds on this. Lyrically, I 100% agree with you that this is a very vulnerable posture. That he's been knocked off his square. He's head over heels. One of the things that I love actually is what's missing in this section where he says, "There's so many things I want to do with you. There's so many things I want to do for you. So many things." What he never says is so many things I want to do to you. And there's very much a do to you posture in the breakdown right before it, right? Like he literally says, "And I'll still do it all to you." But here, to your point, he's in this sort of service and compliance and awe and admiration. And there are two things that I find interesting. One is the obsession with her perfection. The other is this concern about her being hurt. He says, "Listen, don't ever let anybody hurt you." And then a few lines later, he says, "No one can ever hurt you." And then in within that, there is too that, you don't have any reason to feel insecure, which I think, can speak to emotional hurt. All of that is a very different character than the frenzied person that we just dealt with. This is Jekyll and Hyde shit right here, right? Like, we are now back to, the beast emerged, the beast performed, and now we've got the man sort of shrinking into a very different posture where I think, realistically, as grown-ups, we can relate to that. There is that, there's a sort of literal and figurative deflation that happens after big performance. And I think in that sort of post-coital bliss, we see a different character. All of that. Oh, and one other thing. I find it really interesting that he notes here that one, that it's, though it's unusual, he claims to love this person, and then claims to have known that the split second before they kissed, asks for a kiss again, which, seemingly would confirm that love. But then before that kiss happens, puts the brakes on, says, "Wait, fuck me again," which is backward to the way that we think about it usually, right? Like, kiss first, fuck next, or maybe not immediately next, but sometime there's a progression. Then kissing is usually first. And here he's like, before you give me that second kiss, that's going to, that moment before I knew or will know that this is love, he's asking for the fuck again, which is maybe I'm going to make two comparisons of Prince to Michael Jackson in this conversation. This is one. Comparison number one. This is maybe kind of like that moment at the end of Thriller where you feel like everything's okay, and then he turns and you see the glowing eyes, and it's like, he's still the beast. He's still the monster. And I feel like that sort of even though there's a desperation there, I can't decide if that desperation is from this very, very humbled man who is so in love and so enthralled with his perfect woman, or it's closer to that desperation of do this before I can't control it again. I just felt it bubbling up again. I'm not going to be able to control it. I'm scared. Please fuck me again. Comparison number 2 to Michael Jackson. So I said earlier I was of two minds about this section. Lyrically, I 100% agree with you. Performatively, this part sounds so insincere to me because we've heard him do this a number of times. There are times when we've heard him have these one-sided conversations, and I've literally like checked my headphones or checked my speaker. Like, do I have the volume? Why am I not? Because I just knew there was another person talking, because there was a sort of authenticity or sort of realness to it. This sounds so much like a performance, and to my ear, he sounds like Michael Jackson. He sounds like Michael Jackson at the beginning of Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. That little preamble that he does at the beginning of that song. And there's a couple of other songs where MJ does this talk where he's supposed to be talking to a lover, and it just doesn't sound real. And I know I'm breaking a cardinal sin comparing Michael Jackson and Prince. Like, ever since the 80s, we wasn't supposed to do that. But there's something about his delivery here that takes away from the writing. The way that it reads does feel very much like, oh, wow, this guy has been turned out and he's ready to just be a human being. The way that it sounds like he's playing with somebody, like he's pretending the part. So I'm on the fence about it. And this last section, for all of its intrigue, for all the interest that it adds to the song, is part of the reason why this is part of why by the time we get here, I'm kind of tired of the song. It's part of the reason why We Can Funk is I prefer that one, because this section, it exhausts me a little bit. It's necessary from a storytelling standpoint. It's absolutely necessary for this character that he's built, this scenario that he's put up, this massive climax. Massive climax that happens in the breakdown. It needs a denouement. It needs a coming down and sort of an epilogue of sorts. It's necessary for the story that this song tells, but in terms of the way it sounds and the performance part of it, I'm a little tired by the time we get here.
Yeah, and this spoken word section is in no other version, so it was definitely part of the song that was stripped, that was put on the cutting room floor when he revisited the song for We Can Funk in '86 or the 89-90 version. Whether or not he felt it was necessary or just felt like it weighted the song down a little bit too much. Like we all love Computer Blue, the Hallway Speech version, but there's a lot going on there, and you had to make some edits for the album, and this is no different. Like, you got to cut something. You can't throw another 10 plus minute song on a already double album soundtrack for Graffiti Bridge. We got to cut some stuff. So, and he'd already done it for '86, so it's like I'm not bringing that back for the '89-90 version. So let's talk Graffiti Bridge. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead. You ready?
Well, no, it actually works. Yeah, I'm definitely ready. I was gonna say, I feel like when he made this song, if he made this for the Purple Rain soundtrack, I feel like this was somebody who didn't know how soundtracks were put together. To think that this song was going to be on there is insane.
Or the original Computer Blue, like that. What?
Right.
I love it, but
like to think you were going to put that on there is ridiculous. And I feel like by the time Graffiti Bridge came around, one, he wanted this story to be a part of that character story, so he wanted to get the song in there. But two, Graffiti Bridge's version was somebody who knew how soundtracks worked, somebody who knew what you could and couldn't get on, because the way, while the ratings, we had by then all the sort of stickers and labels and concerns and stuff like that for what musicians were allowed to say. And Prince had definitely gone through his own transformation. But the way that studios evaluate songs that you can get away with on a regular album versus songs that are going to go on a soundtrack album are very different. And there's no way We Can Fuck, any iteration of it that had the word fuck prominently, was going to be a soundtrack song. But the version
not a
that
mainstream soundtrack, no.
yeah, not a mainstream sound now, but the version that we get, I think in some ways is a concession, and I think in other ways it's a big fuck you. I think it's, you know, a bit of a middle finger that he didn't get the original one. And that's why I think we get this, what occurs for me as really, really just aggressive, in your face fuck you in the opening chorus.
Okay, so what we get that's different right off the bat for Graffiti Bridge's We Can Funk. He has like this kind of chant: jump 'em and funk 'em, pump 'em and funk 'em, we can funk. Okay, sure, we can. I don't know what jumping 'em and funking 'em means, but pump 'em and funk 'em, yeah, that's a little more obvious to me.
Yeah, it's the same thing. He's basically just saying the same thing in a bunch of different ways.
Okay, so but the part of this song, and okay, so just for context, this song features George Clinton. George Clinton, obviously the singer-songwriter, leader of Parliament Funkadelic, amazing 70s and 80s, early 80s funk and rock outfits, plural. And so, you know, George's got this larger-than-life persona. His you know, artistic persona on album covers and on stage, outlandish outfits, you know, diaper wearing, spaceship exiting, you know, like this just crazy person that, you know, uses his own language. His songs have its own language. Atomic Dog, another song from the early 80s where you've got like this imagery of, you know, he's just saying, why must I be like that? Why must I chase the cat? It's nothing but the dog and me. So he's likening himself to a dog. So this next section, I'm testing positive for the funk. I'll gladly pee in anybody's cup. And when your cup overflow, I'm testing positive and I'll pee some more.
Yeah.
So we're getting a big George Clinton vibe from this song now. None of that, of course, was in the 86 We Can Funk with the Revolution. So this is either, and this is kind of like, I don't know which one it is, because this song is credited to both Prince and George Clinton, and I've never listened to any interviews of George talking about the writing of this song to know, like, was that his input? Like, did he write that for Prince or for this song, or did Prince like try to write this in a manner that would be fitting for George's performance? I don't know which is which, to be honest.
I can't tell. And there's so much about this. I mean, it really is it is a perfect blend of the two of them. It's to me, it's crazy how I can't distinguish anything in particular that I would say, oh, that's definitely George Clinton. Like maybe the jump 'em and funk 'em, pump 'em and funk 'em, because it does have that sort of chant like rhythm that Clinton was very known for. So I feel like the you know, the jump 'em and funk 'em, pump 'em and funk 'em, that feels very George Clinton because of that sort of chant like thing that he's known for. That's not uncommon. But the and also those words are interesting because even though he's saying pump 'em and funk 'em, the familiar colloquial expression is pump 'em and dump 'em. And so there's this is not a lovemaking, this is not a relationship. We're not going to get the whole "you're so perfect, you're so wonderful" posture of the outro of the former one. This one starts right off with, this is about fucking. Even though we're not saying fucking, we're going to remove anything that sounds like otherwise, except for in one of the parts where Prince changes the lyric that we'll get to. But as much as I love this version of the song, part of why I love it is because it confounded me. Because I kept listening. I had to double listen because he's clearly saying funk. It's in the title he says funk, so I know he says funk. But every time he says it, I'm hearing fuck. And again, remember, I'm talking about like the very first time I heard this, right? So like,
right.
7th grade or 8th grade, I can't remember. Sometime one of those, somewhere in middle school, because I got in trouble for playing this song for one of my female friends in middle school. This was before the days of I could share a track with you over email. I was literally playing it over the phone, holding the phone to the speaker and letting her listen to it. And her dad came in the room, was like, "What is that?" And it didn't go well. It did not go well for me. But at any rate, because my mind had been opened, I wanted to open minds too. But what I'm a terrible person. But what I found so confounding was this was a song about sex. And before you get a good 20 seconds into it, you're talking about something as though it's an STD.
Yeah, and that's what throws me off. Is like, this is a little off-putting when you're talking about.
It's so off-putting. Like, you tested positive, and again, putting it in the time frame, we're this is a nation
HIV.
We're very aware of AIDS, and we're doing we're just starting to do the work of educating people on all the ways that you don't catch it, because the frenzy of it and the peak paranoia about it is around about this time, because now we've moved from that time period where people thought it was a gay disease. The very first news reports about HIV referred to it as a strange cancer that only affected gay males. And then when we started, by now we've had Ryan White. We've been introduced to figures and characters, and it's impacted people's lives in a way that people were genuinely scared that it could happen to them. You could get it anywhere. You could get it from, I don't know if Magic Johnson had made his announcement yet, but like we're at that stage of frenzy. And George and Prince hit us with, I'm testing positive for the funk. And then talks about bodily fluid. Not even one of the fun bodily fluids. Like, it's just gross. And then, because I'm listening so hard, because it was a word that had, at that time in my life, recently entered my vocabulary, I was not sure he was saying cup. So I was like, what is he going to pee in? Can you do that? Why would you do that? I had so many questions. And when is it Rosie, or it can't be Mavis Staples? It's got to be Rosie who delivers the line later. I gladly pee in. Who is that? Because it's George at first.
Let me see what the Prince Fault says is who's credited on that, because a lot of, like, towards further in this song, there's a lot of pulled lines that are straight from the 83, 84 version. So you've got your Jill Jones still on background vocals.
Okay.
But according to this, it gives background voices to a whole mess of people, and I don't see Rosie or anybody. It doesn't say. Or if it does say, it's somebody with a strong voice.
Yeah, somebody with one of those church lady voices comes in and says it, and when she sings it, I do not hear that pop, right? Like that plosive for cup. And it sounds like come. And I'm like, so we got pee and come and testing positive all mixed into this song, where someone is still, even though they're not saying fuck, they're still talking about fucking. It was, at that time in my life, one of the nastiest things that I'd ever heard. And
it makes it less sexy for me.
It's less sexy, but it's more nasty. And that's it's like, that's what I mean. Like, he doesn't say fuck as a way to sort of tone it down, right? But it's not toned down at all. It's actually turned up.
I guess, man. I guess I gotta concede. You're right. But because that whole section is just gross to me.
Oh, it's gross. Yeah.
And because what it gives me imagery of is somebody who's had a lot of sex and wants to get an STD test or STI test. Got to pee in the cup. They're going to test it. Oh, it's positive. You've got chlamydia or you've got gonorrhea. Hope that sex was great because you're paying for it now. So I'm sorry, that is not a real sexy, or it's real, like it's a real thing. It's a real outcome of a real potential outcome of sex, but that doesn't make it something that I find arousing.
That's why, and I feel like that's why I consider this song such a fuck you, maybe even to the label, that he toned it down by taking out the word fuck, replacing it with funk, doing it in that quasi-ambiguous way where you have to listen really hard to make sure, because every time it's stretched out, it sounds different. May have done the same thing with the word cup, but then just, because you can't, I don't know what standards and practices or whatever else the label might have had in place, but these things that he's saying, you're right, they're not sexy, but it makes the song nasty in a way that I don't think We Can Fuck ever was. And so whatever they were trying to avoid on one side in terms of it being objectionable and nasty, he drove the truck straight through that on this one. And it does speak to, I think, the sort of frenzy and all of that of the previous version of the 1984 version that suggests this sort of uncontrollableness when it comes to sex. Our society, our standards kind of dictates that sort of uncontrolled hedonistic pleasure has to have consequences. And it almost feels like, to your point, hope that sex was worth it. It feels like he's bringing those in here, but then also saying, but I don't care. I don't even care. I'm out here for it. I'm not celebrating it as like, ooh, that shit turns me on. It was just my ooh, my nipples are hard. He peeing in a cup. but I am saying, like, for someone who was, again, at my age at that time, my ideas of what doing it were supposed to be were very, very limited. And this it was like, oh, holy shit, that's gross, but I can't stop looking. It was kind of that. And as I grew up, with and through the song and started, hearing other versions of it, and as music changed and evolved and people got a lot more nasty and a lot less creative with it, I got more to the point of, was this really necessary? But at the time, it was just so mind-blowing. Did he say that? Can you say that? But
I was just going to say, this album got an explicit lyrics parental advisory sticker.
Yes,
something that Purple Rain never got. Something that no other Prince album got. Yeah, exactly. Right. So 1999 didn't get that because it didn't exist. This album got it. And I think it's solely because of this song.
Probably. I was trying to think what other songs on. There's Love Machine. No, Love Machine doesn't get anywhere near that dirty.
And it's got to be this song, man. It's got to be We Can Funk. And there's hardly any actual curse words on this song.
Right.
It's all, I think it was like, to your point, like, I don't care that he didn't say fuck. He only says funk. The tone of the song is identical to the 84 version. He's talking about sex, obviously. And then you've got like this whole testing positive and peeing in a cup, and I'll pee some more, once I test positive again, I'm just going to pee some more. And probably they were listening to this and like, well, I mean, I'm sorry, Prince, nice try, but we're still just going to throw the sticker at you. You're trying to get over on us, but...
but the song was on there. It wasn't objectionable that they couldn't take it, that they took it off there. I think
not by 1990, man. NWA had already come out, Two Live Crew had already come out. This was nothing compared to that.
True. So, yeah. But I mean, again, those were albums. This was a soundtrack, and that still. Well, I mean, was this officially called a soundtrack?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is more of a soundtrack than Purple Rain was.
True.
If you think about it,
Purple Rain was actually called a soundtrack, and
it was.
I don't know if this one got that kind of billing.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah.
There's a part that we talked about in the last song, and I really want to address his change because, again, for this song being as nasty and objectionable as it is, the man who in the previous song was comfortable saying sex between two people is all right, whether they're in love or not, changes it to if all the love in the world is what they've got, which is a really high bar for sex to be okay.
Yeah, sex between two people is all right if all the love in the world is what they got, or as long as they're not trying to hurt nobody, just as long as it's hot. Good Lord, baby, I want to make love to you 2 times, maybe 3. So, instead of saying sex, instead of saying fuck, he says funk or make love or whatever. But he still goes through the whole, I'll be your little baby, big strong man, boy or girl, your toy. A lot of this is very similar. He even says electric ass and electric thighs again.
Yeah.
It's very similar. It's not identical, but it's very similar. And he even uses the same, people tell me I got no taste, let him blow the candle out and see if it's true. So he reuses that. But yeah, you're right. That part, all the love in the world is what they got, as long as they're not trying to hurt, or sex between two people is all right. If all the love in the world is what they got, that's a pretty significant change. Yeah.
Especially in the middle of a song that has a very, very different tone. In that previous song, if he had said that, then by the time we get to the denouement, right, the closing piece where he's having that conversation, that one-sided conversation, it would have fit that much better. Because it would have been like, oh, okay, well, by then his mind was blown and he knew that he was in love and it absolutely had to happen. All of that sex was an outgrowth of the love, but that wasn't the case. Here, where even though we're not saying fucking, we're clearly talking about fucking, he adds this unusual caveat that love is necessary. And not just that they be in love, not just, when two are in love kind of love, but all the love in the world. They have to be that kind of committed, which is a crazy level of emotional affirmation and commitment for a song that sounds and presents the way this one does. It almost sticks out as, what the hell are you doing here? And the only way that I'm able to justify that in the context of the song and the time and everything else, outside of knowing that Prince was a different Prince by now, is thinking about the character that the kid was involved with, who was a literal or figurative angel, who was some version of an angel, and that was almost required of him. And what's really crazy to me when I think about her, and because I said I view this lens through the character that I think he's trying to present, which, because these are connected to the films, it's the kid and whatever version of his his life journey that he's in. It's crazy to me that oh, you're so perfect, I love you so much, no, you're wonderful, you're great, you're everything that I'm not, isn't in this song. Because in the story of Graffiti Bridge, that would have made so much more sense for the kid to feel that way about this woman that he was pursuing. In the story of Graffiti Bridge, this version, which is vulgar, less profanity but more vulgarity. This version that is more vulgar feels like a disconnect. Doesn't feel like it should, from a performance standpoint, from a sonic standpoint, makes sense for the time. From a tonal standpoint, in terms of lyrics and the story that's being told, this story does not fit that character. This story almost doesn't really fit that man, because this isn't, the Prince of this time isn't, celebrating out there fucking rampantly. He's presumably evolved or matured more. But he's telling a different story here.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what makes this a little bit confusing addition to the soundtrack. I'm glad it's there because I like the song a lot, but to me it's a little bit of an outlier from the songs that Prince was writing for Graffiti Bridge, or that he reused, which is one of these. I think he just really wanted the song to find a home. He just wanted the song to find a home. And he figured out a way to make it happen, and figured out like a way to get George Clinton involved without it sounding too, I don't know, without it being like shoehorned in, I guess. Maybe you could say that he's a little bit shoehorned in. There's versions of the song that are perfectly fine without George, so it's not like this song wouldn't exist without George Clinton's influence and performance. Well, it does, and it's okay. It's really good without George too, but it is what it is, and this is the version we got. But yeah, whether you like funk or funk, there's no wrong answer.
There's something for everybody.
Something for everybody.
Just
but guess
close
what?
Your eyes, blow out the candles, make a wish.
So yeah, make a wish. So we be funkin' over here, and over there ain't shit, but doesn't matter because we have to close this episode out. So
Fair enough.
That's how the song ends. In case you forgot, we be funkin' over here, and over there ain't shit, and they repeat that over again. So that's another time when they say a curse word. I'm like, God, did this song get an explicit lyric sticker just for the use of the word shit a few times at the end of Weekend Funk? I don't know. That seems pretty harsh, but
it's got to be the content. I don't think it's that word.
It's got to be the content. Yeah, it's got to be the content. All right, Julian. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. It's been a blast talking about these two songs.
Most definitely.
I love your takes. I always love your takes. So anytime you want to be on the show, you're more than welcome to join. Do you have anything you want to share with the audience?
Man, I can't plug a damn thing. All I'm trying to do is get this degree. I'm finishing up my MFA this year, and after that, I might re-enter the real world and have some stuff to talk about. But right now, if you want to holler at me, you can find me on the Twitters at @1JulianB_Long. And yeah, please, by all means.
Okay. Well, thank you again.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right. This has been the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger. You can find the show, social media, Twitter /X, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, YouTube. PressRewind.net is the website. You can find the show as well. And until next time, thank you very much and goodbye.